A warm welcome to leaders joining in from all over the world. It is certainly my pleasure to introduce to you round one of the first virtual Lean-In Circle, hosted by Old Mutual and its partners Greenfolk and Leading Edge Management Consultants. Whether you are tackling new challenges at work or home, or looking for career advice, or just seeking peer support, this circle will help you get there. You are probably wondering what exactly the Lean-In Circles is and why the call to action. In 2010, Sheryl Sandberg hosted a TED Talk on the ways women are held back and the way we hold ourselves back. This has created a wave of responses and conversations from around the world that inspired Sheryl to write the book Lean In: Women, Work and the Will to Lead, as a means to encourage women to talk about their experiences and ideas in a meaningful way. In addition to a book, Sandberg founded the leanin.org, which facilitates women's development and promotes the creation of Lean-In circles such as ours, where experiences and resources can be shared to encourage the professional development of women. The introduction of our Lean-In Circles platform in 2017, in conjunction with our partners, allows women from all walks of life to learn from one another's experiences in a guided conversation. Additionally, we want to make sure that we are preparing the next generation to take over leadership. Our 2020 theme is Showing Up, and we will have 3 Lean-In sessions that delve into how to show up for yourself, at work, and in your industry, and in your community. So welcome again to round one with our special guest speaker Karen Powell on showing up as your creative self. Let us now join our strategic thinker and seasoned facilitator Kasee Ithana to guide this conversation for us. Don't forget to engage with us in the comments section, and for those of you following on social media, use our hashtag OMWS2020. Thank you.
Good afternoon to the wonderful women out
there. A warm
there.
welcome
Some
to leaders.
Say probably good morning, because we are in different time zones in different places in the world. I am very, very, very excited to be part of this event. Maurisa has done a wonderful introduction, and I'm also equally and super excited to be joined by Karen to be part of such important conversation. Welcome, Karen, and I'm humbled to be facilitating this process. Today's topic is showing up as your creative self, or showing up for yourself. As Maurisa have clearly indicated, this is part one of a session that is going to happen in 3 parts. And today I have the privilege to be talking to Karen, whom Maurisa introduced very well. So today's Lean-In session, as I said, we are going to talk about showing up as your creative self. And then I'll be turning to Karen. Karen, before we start, I really want us to talk about the concept of creativity. I'm one of those people who grew up defining creativity or believing creativity was for those people who were in fashion design, the art students, the poets and the musicians. And I had a brief moment of talking to you, and I'm realizing that you in this Lean-In session will be able to expand a little bit on the concept of creativity. So what does creativity mean to you in the context of showing up?
Yes, so creativity is the way I look at it, is creativity is the way that you live your life. So many of us kind of think of, like you said, creativity as more of an artistic or, sort of a the creative, the artistic, the writing or the drawing or the painting or the poetry. But really, creativity is how you live your life. It's the way you show up, the way you dress. It's the way you show up for your kids, the way you show up for your friends. It's the way you bring your purpose, your unique purpose, into your life and how you express it out into your life. So that can be anything, absolutely anything. So creativity is not just a narrow artistic definition anymore. We're going to open it up to really it's how you live your life as a reflection and an expression of who you are into the world.
Wow, I'm excited to hear that. Because I stopped sort of drawing when I was probably in the primary school, and so I've been believing I'm not creative. But if it is about the expression of who I am, I'm quite excited, and I'm sure the audience, the many women and men who are out there, they will equally enjoy this conversation. So Karen, before we dive in, would you mind sharing with us your backstory? It was lovely having an opportunity to talk to you. I connected so deeply with you that particular day in your studio. Do you mind sharing with us your own story?
Sure, just kind of in a nutshell. I'm from the States. I've been living in Namibia for over 20 years now. And when I made that transition from I was working in the corporate world for about 10 years. And I really was feeling this sort of, 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up going, there must be something more that I want to express or feel or do. And so I went on sort of an introspective journey of self-development. And sort of long story short, I found myself following a childhood passion about Africa, just sort of a fascination with Africa. And I moved to Namibia, left my life in Chicago, and I moved to Namibia thinking that I'm going to connect with nature and be in nature conservation and just start this new sort of expression of myself. And when I got here, I realized all of a sudden I was following my heart, and all of a sudden my heart said, okay, you're here, you're in Namibia, you love nature, yes, all of that, but now there's something else that you're going to be doing. And I didn't know what that was. And so I started to, wonder, like, well, have I listened to my heart? Have I got something wrong here? I don't know what I want to do now. And so I found myself walking up this mountain that was near. I was staying with a friend, and behind their house was this, these big hills, and I started every day. I was like just walking up that mountain and thinking, what am I meant to do? What is my purpose? Why did I make this change in my life? And it took a while to really understand and to hear really what my heart was trying to tell me. And so that really set me on a journey of understanding what my creativity was, and then in turn creating spaces for people to come to terms with their own creativity and their own purpose in life. So that's what I, sort of what's the word I want to look for? Found myself doing something different and translated that into the work that I'm doing today, which is helping people understand what their purpose is and how they can best express their creativity out into the world.
Wonderful. So this was a journey that, what I'm hearing, that required a lot of patience and a lot of listening, because you're using a notion that we probably want to know, listening with your heart. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yes. So listening within is one of the things that I teach people, and there's ways you can do that to listen when there aren't any answers. Don't stop listening when you're not getting answers. And that's what was happening to me, is I wasn't getting any answers. Every day I'd walk up that mountain and I would look down in the valley and go, what now? What next? What do I do? And I had to really listen, not give up on the listening, and really go into my heart and just listen to the silence, actually, and not know, and be willing to stay in that not knowing. And I think so many of us want to know, our brains want to know, what's the next step? What should I be doing? What is my plan? You know, give me an ABC plan and I'll follow it. And on the creative journey, it doesn't work that way. You don't actually get in a 1, 2, 3, step 1, step 2, step 3 plan. You really have to go within and listen to your heart and be willing to listen to silence for a long time. Be willing to spend time in silence and be curious about what is trying to come through, because your brain will always try to silence the heart. The brain is the logical part of you, and it just is like, you know what, let's just keep you safe, because not knowing is not safe, right? As human beings in our biology, we just want to know so that we can stay safe. We want to know what's behind that rock over there, you know, what's behind that tree. Let me just make sure that I'm safe. And if you want to go really and access your true creativity, you have to be willing to put the mind aside, put the brain aside, and go into the heart and ask the heart, show me. And if it doesn't show you right away, what's happening is you're learning trust as well. And so when I was walking up and down that mountain every day, I really feel like, you know, not only was I building my leg muscles and my heart muscle, you know, going up and down the mountain, but I was also, if I look back in hindsight, I was also building my trust muscle. And that trust muscle said to me, don't give up on yourself just because you don't know. Because my heart said, absolutely 100%, I know I've made the right move, but I still don't know what to do. So in that space, in that silence, is the only place I could have built the trust muscle. Do you see, the trust muscle can't be built with always knowing. Because in order to learn the piano, you have to be able to play the piano even when you don't know, right? That's how you learn how to play. So it's the same with learning trust. You have to be able to be and stay in that place of not knowing and just keep coming back to it and keep being curious about it.
One thing that I'm also hearing is that this process requires a lot of probably being, to some extent, to be vulnerable and to be able to live in that space and embrace that discomfort. Can you tell us a little bit more? How did you sort of navigate that space and that whole notion of building trust? Because as you say that our brain wants to, it's very, very difficult to silence our brain. The mental rest is one of those sacred places that I would really want to sort of achieve, but every now and then there is another thought that is coming and another thought that is coming. So how did you deal with that?
I use some tools. You can actually use some tools that make the brain sort of relax a little bit, because it's always vying for your attention, right? Like you said, it's always wanting to know those answers. So what I did was I was journaling every day. I was doing a practice called the morning pages, which is something that I learned in a creativity course that I did. And it is just every morning for like 15, 20 minutes, writing just whatever is on your mind, just kind of journaling and letting things flow, letting things, you know, surprise you on the page. And this is what was happening is, as I was writing, there were so many surprising things that would come up, and I'm like, where did that even come from?
Do you mind sharing those?
Sorry?
Do you mind sharing them with us?
Yeah, one of the surprise things was, it was, you know, like I said earlier, that I came here thinking, I want to work in nature conservation. I want to be out in the middle of nowhere in nature with animals. I'm happy to do that. Just be on my own and just be doing sort of a, you know, nature thing, right? So I was writing one morning, and all of a sudden, and I'm like, but I don't know. I'm starting to feel like I don't want to do that. And then all of a sudden, my pen just wrote out, that's because you need to work with people. And that surprised me so much, because that was not on my agenda at all. I was like, no. I'm happy to actually just be out in the middle of nowhere by myself, just out in nature. And so that was really surprising, that something my heart was trying to tell me, Karen, you really are, your purpose is meant to work with people. And so that's all it got. I was like, well, how? What do I do? There was no other information at that time. So it was surprising to me because it was so out of left field. It was not what I thought I came here for. It's not what I signed up for. And, but as I kept engaging every single day with this same process, more information would come. Oh, you want to help people build their self-esteem. I'm like, I do? Yeah, I do. Like, it was almost like something was coming through me in my, through the pen, giving me ideas, and I was like, and my heart would be like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then another thing I did, which really helps the brain a lot, is I started using imagery. So magazines, pulling out pictures of magazines that just resonated with me, that just made me feel sort of calm and sort of, just curious and interested. It also just made my brain, I think, when you've got this dream, so now like this impossible dream starting to, this thing starting to emerge, and I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, what this is telling me to do, I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but it feels really exciting. So the brain will say, well, if you don't know how to do something, then don't do it. Go do what you know how to do, right? The brain's always trying to keep us safe. So what I started to do was pull out some imagery, and then the brain sees, oh, that's possible. Like, there's a picture of a woman, working with people, and everybody's laughing and smiling, and they seem happy, and they seem like they're building their self-esteem. And so the brain already sees a possibility when you give it a picture to look at. So that was another tool that I used just to help me to get through that unknown, like that not knowing phase of what does this even look like?
Yeah.
I don't even know what this looks like. Yeah.
So when you talk about the process of journaling and writing down, and what I like about the mountain, it's I think it's metaphorical, right? So what could be a mountain to somebody else? Not everybody have an opportunity to walk on a daily basis as part of their daily walk and walk up a hill or a mountain. So if I'm in a space where there's no mountain, what could that be for me?
Wow, well, I think that any time we follow our dreams and follow our heart, it's going to take you up a mountain. So if anybody has a feeling like, I've got this dream that I would like to express myself in this way, or do this thing, maybe write this book, or start this business, or become this kind of a leader, whatever it is, but it feels really out of reach, that is your mountain right there. So what we tend to do is we start walking, and we get scared, because when we start going for our dreams, in that very process, we end up triggering the doubts and the limiting beliefs that are within us that say, oh no, you can't do that, that's not for you. So what I would say is that when you start taking that walk, the mountain is the limiting beliefs and the doubts that are going to start coming in. You don't turn around and go back. Don't go back into your comfort zone, but keep taking a step. You get to the top of a mountain by taking one step at a time. You don't run up there, you don't jump over boulders up there. You take one step at a time, and then when you get tired, you rest. And then you get back up, and then you take your next step. And when you come across something on your path that is difficult or that is challenging, don't turn around and run away, but face it head on and engage with it and be curious about it and see, what is it trying to tell me? What is this limiting belief trying to tell me about myself? Is it really true? Is it time to examine those beliefs? Examine those things that are making me feel like I can't do this. So I always feel that anytime we go for a big dream, it's a mountain. It does feel like a mountain.
I just want to remind the audience out there that Please remember to post your comments and questions in the chat box on Facebook and YouTube. Karen and I will continue to talk for a little while, and then later we will engage with the audience. Thank you. Quite interesting. That is why I sort of had a sense that when you talk about a mountain, it's very a metaphor for something. And thank you for explaining that. What I'm also curious about is how did you go through this process, and how long was your process? Because it may seem like here you're talking to me and it may seem like it's a very quick process, but I think you explained very well with the metaphor of the mountain with some of the limiting beliefs. Maybe you might say as well if you shared one or two limiting beliefs that you encountered, so that we can learn from that. And I love the idea that you're also bringing tools that we can use as we sort of discovering our own creativity.
Yeah, I think one of the main limiting beliefs that I had, and that I notice a lot of people have, especially women, who am I? Who am I to do this thing that I want to do? Who am I to help other people, you know, with their personal growth? What makes me able to do that? And if I were to answer that at the time when I first started getting that limiting belief, I would say, oh, well, I can't do that. So let me just go back to, you know, something I know. So I think that when you start identifying those limiting beliefs, then you can really start to question them and really start to examine them and ask yourself, does that really need to still be true in my life? Sorry, what was the question? What did you first ask? Oh, the time frame, how long it was. Yes,
frame, yeah.
Yes. So the time frame is it's whatever it is. It's whatever it takes. And if you're willing to be in it for however long it takes, then it will go much quicker. So that's my answer to that question, because
very interesting.
because we all want to know how long this is going to take. If you engage every day with your limiting beliefs, and if you engage every day with your goals and your dreams, what you want to do, then you build momentum, and then you can really move into it, and it becomes this process. You know, it's a process. It's not an event. It is really a process of engagement, of being courageous. I love the word courageous because it's like, I'm scared, but my heart tells me to do this thing. That's what I feel courageous is. It's moving forward, not waiting until you're brave, not waiting until you don't have fear, because then you're going to wait forever. So it's really, it's very individual. For me, I would say, gosh, I mean, I think it's a lifelong process. I'm still learning, and I'm still, you know, working on some limiting beliefs. I think you just keep going to different levels and levels. But I think that to really engage in getting some real movement and growth, I really believe in a 90-day container. There's something about a 90-day container, which is, you know, more or less sort of 12, 13 weeks of very focused introspection. There's something very magical about that container of time that can get you through an actual transformation and a, you know, like a real realization of, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing. There's something called, well, I don't know if it's called this, I made it up, so I guess it is called it, but the 70-day syndrome, where right around day 70 or so, you go, you know what? I don't think I can do this. And you want to turn around and go back. You say, you know what, this is too hard. I'm not going to do this. That shows you that the 90 days is like calling you, beckoning you, but there's a space where you're about to lose your old identity. And the self doesn't like that. The self doesn't like anything to do with death, right? We want to preserve ourselves. So even the old identity that you maybe want to shed, which like for me is like, well, who am I? Maybe I'm not good enough. Right as you're about to shed that old belief and get the new one of, I am someone who can do this. I am capable. there's a part of you that will really pull you and beckon you to stop and to go back to the old way, to go back into the comfort zone. So remember the 70-day syndrome. When you hit that, if you are going to do a 90-day container of transformation or focus, when you hit that, it's more or less 70, 60, 70, 80, just before you're about to make that real change, the old self will go, nah, let's go back.
Wow. That's beautiful. I think I'll try to remember those 70 days and to really help myself to push through. And I'm sure the audience out there, you're hearing the message that we shouldn't quit. We should push through. Karen, during our discussion, you had a very lovely example that you gave me about somebody that you helped through the process. But before we get there, you speak about a container. So Lean In is all about supporting women to really operate from the power that we have, because quite often we are told, or we make decisions that, okay, I'm going to be just a teacher and continue doing my daily job because I want to raise my kids. And then when the empty nest is sort of approaching, then you sort of begin to decide that, oh no, I'm too old, I can't do anything. But you mentioned something, and I think we have created these sessions, these Lean In circles to support each other. So when you talk about the container, I'm seeing something that is sort of providing a support structure. So during this process, what was your support structure? And do you need any to go through this process? Because it can be a lonely journey, the way I see it, to discover your creative self.
Yes, absolutely. For myself, during my process, I had a mentor. So I was seeing a mentor on a weekly basis, and that was a support for me. What was interesting was I realized that when I was wanting to make a change in my life, I sort of took an inventory of what was going on in my life, and I realized that some people who were very close to me were actually not being supportive. So I think it's important to know who's on your side, who's not on your side. And that doesn't mean who's good and who's bad or whatever. It's just right now in your life, who's being supportive, and to identify those people and to call them, and to bring them close and to ask for help. I think we also, some of us struggle to ask for help, and we think we've got to do it all ourselves. You absolutely should not do it yourself. Absolutely not. You need someone to believe in you, to acknowledge what you're saying, how you're feeling, and then to encourage you to keep going. It's like back to the mountain analogy. If you think about these people who climb Mount Everest, there's always a Sherpa. These Sherpas, nobody goes up that mountain by themselves. Even with just a guide, there's always a guide, there's a Sherpa, there's a group. You always are doing this together. And that Sherpa is somebody who's been born on that mountain. He runs up and down that mountain all day long, and he runs circles around everybody, and he's so acclimated to that space. You want to be with like-minded people, but you also want to be with people who can, who can just pull you up when you just want to turn around and go back to base camp. You want someone who's been up and down that mountain to bring you. So look for those safe places where there's a structure, where there's, like you do with the summit and with the Lean In sessions, there's a structure that is really in place to create that support when the going gets tough, because it will get tough at times.
Yeah, it does get tough. You just reminded me of at a time when I decided to leave teaching in the early 90s, just taught for a few years. And of course, we quite often believe that our family, our immediate family, your sisters, your brothers, your aunts, are your support structure. And I would call them my giants. Sorry guys, to my family. I called them my giants. Very well, the concerns were very valid. It's like, oh, why are you leaving teaching? It's a half-day job, which is not really a half-day job. That's a serious misconception out there. Why are you leaving government for another sector? Because you're having a job security, you're having a medical aid, so there are some things that you need to let go of. And I really want to that you explain to us that notion of letting go. The other issue also that I want you to talk about quickly is the issue of control. How do you relinquish control? Because we love controlling things. So you say that, I want to know what is behind that door and what is it that I'm going to do in the next half an hour. And I want to know, the planning goes on and on and on. But I don't think that those are some of the things that we need to let go of if we have to release it off. Not if we have to begin to discover this creative self that I am. There is a lot of let go, relinquishing of control. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, let's talk about control first.
Yeah.
And here's the good news and the bad news about it is that you never had control in the first place.
It's an illusion?
So it's an illusion.
Wow.
So, but the illusion makes the brain feel safer, right? It makes our biology and our survival, that survival thing, feel safer. To think, well, if I can control everything, then I can, then I'll be okay, right? So to know that really control is an illusion, and I think we see that in these COVID times as well, that people think they had control, and then all of a sudden it was pulled out like a rug underneath your feet, going, wait a minute, I don't have any control. And I think that's really thrown people literally for a loop, because they see where I thought I had control in my life, I didn't actually. So know that control is really, it's an illusion. And it's also the idea of keeping yourself in control is keeping yourself inside a box, you know, and there just is no growth in that way. So you can either have control of your life, or you can let go of control and be more curious and present and live a creative life. So the letting go part is, it's really a beautiful thing if you think about it. When you let go of the things that are draining you, that are pulling you down, that are not supporting you, when you let go of those things, you create a space for something new to come in. And you know, picture it, and what we want to do is we want to, well, first let me get the thing in to support me, and then I'll let go of these other things, because it's too scary to have just this empty space, right? So it's it's a different way of thinking. You have to think in sort of a backwards way of, if I let go of control, I can actually get support. Because isn't that what we want?
Yeah.
We just want to feel supported, and we want to feel safe. So letting go of needing to know everything, and realizing that really you don't control anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
The last conversation we had, you gave me a lovely example of a lady, let us call her Linda. Do you mind sharing that example with us?
Linda's story. Yeah, so this is someone who was interested in making a change in her career. She was still interested in doing something professionally, but she just wasn't happy with what she was doing at that time. And she really wanted to make a change out of that that kind of work that she was doing. And so when I asked her, what's interesting to you? You know, what lights you up? And without really thinking about, you know, career or anything like that, just tell me about yourself. What lights you up? And so one of the things she said was, you know, I love being in nature.
Yeah.
And I said, what else? And she said, I love the idea of like helping an endangered species. And I said, what else do you like? And she said, well, I love being inside a laboratory and like putting on a white lab coat and like looking inside a microscope and seeing the little things inside a microscope. And what else do you like? I love white sandy beaches, and I love turquoise water, warm water. And I said, and what kind of people do you love being around? And she said, I love being around tourists because I love their inquisitiveness and I love how curious they are and how much I love explaining new things to them. And so she was here in Namibia, and we don't have any turquoise water here. We don't have white sandy beaches here. We don't have warm water here. And so I said, well, you know, just focus on these things that bring you joy. Focus on all of these aspects that really light you up. And just look at these things that we wrote down, you know, maybe before you go to bed at night and when you wake up in the morning. And she came back to me a week later and she said, you know what, this is the weirdest thing, but I've just been offered a job working in the Seychelles on the white sandy beaches with the turquoise warm water, helping save the leatherback turtle from extinction. And I have to work in the research station looking through the microscope, but I also have to interface with the tourists who are in a nearby lodge who come here for a day trip to learn about the leatherback turtles.
Wow.
She said, look at this job, it's exactly me, but she didn't even look for it. Somebody had just sent her an email saying, hey, I was just thinking about you, just out of the blue. And I said, you know, and that's what we call synchronicities. You know, synchronicity is when you start really engaging with your heart and being honest about what lights you up and what really brings you joy. Somehow the pieces start coming together. And so she, long story short, she took the job. She's living in the Seychelles. She's sending me these pictures of her, you know, with the leatherback turtles and with the tourists. And it's just showing that when she, you know, let herself be in a space of, this is crazy. This is like, I don't even know how I could do this. It doesn't make any sense. And then all of a sudden, the means and the support and the experience comes together. And so I would say to anyone who is in a space of not fully feeling alive in what they're doing, like when you wake up in the morning and you're not just really looking forward to your day, just start engaging with those things or acknowledging those things that you love. And don't try to fit them together into a pretty little package and a pretty little picture. Just start saying, you know what, I really love this, I really love this, this has nothing to do with this, and as you start really connecting with the true essence of who you are, you will be led with little, you know, intuitive nudgings, with ideas. You'll hear something, you'll see a book that makes sense to you to pick up, or you'll go on a course that is supportive, or you'll meet people who talk with people who have maybe that next piece of your puzzle for you.
Wow. I think in my life I call that when you are ready to learn, a teacher emerges.
Exactly.
And one example I would give is that I would be very weird, buy a very expensive book and then put it on my shelf and keep it there for even a period of 5 years. And one day I'll go dusting it, and that would be exactly the information that I would be needing in that particular season of my life. So that is what I call, when you're ready, a teacher emerges.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly what
to be
happens.
very open to that process. Before we allow, and I know that there are very impatient audience there with a lot of attention to that soon. Just the very last that I want us to sort of dive deep a little bit in is this notion of curiosity that you spoke about. And maybe sort of just to a little bit summarize that, what your journey, what your mountain took you, and because I think both Marisa and I didn't do justice to some people who don't know you. So you didn't go to tourism, you're no longer sitting in the desert all by yourself and doing some studies around some...
Being Jane Goodall with the
some endangered geckos at Goba. But you ended up doing what you're doing. I think it would be useful for us to hear from you what you ended up doing.
Yeah, so when I made that pivot, I call that a pivot, where you're just like going in one direction, all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, my heart's telling me go this way. I had to stay open and curious because I really had no information, zero. Remember when I told you I was writing and it just popped out, you need to be working with people. I'm like, what? So being curious is just, it really is about connecting to your heart. And I'm always just constantly doing this, you know, connect heart because it has all of the answers. The brain will try to just keep you in spaces where you are safe, meaning you already know what's going to happen. So if we know the tool, the brain is the tool to keep you safe. The heart is the tool to guide you on your path to higher purpose. If you know the tool, then you know when to use the tool. So it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for your higher purpose, then go into your heart and be curious. Go in there with a curious energy and just ask, what do you want to tell me? And remember to stay present for even the silent spaces that are silent every day for a long time. Just go, okay, I'll wait.
Thank you. So now we're turning to the audience, and there are many questions. I just want to put it out there that the questions. The first questions that I'm going to give to Karen is, how does one transition into this creative role without being broke? LOL.
LOL.
How did Karen deal with not having a salary for that time, and how did she prepare for living without a salary?
Good question. I saved up some money before I took steps, and I never ever suggest to anyone to jump and the net will appear. Okay, never jump blindly and just hope the net's going to be there. So what I like to offer people is a smooth transition from one space to the next space. You should be doing it in such a way that yes, you feel a little nervous, but you also feel trusting. And we talked about building that trust muscle up.
Yeah.
You need to spend time building your trust muscle up so that you know when to take the right step. That you're not just what I call bulldozing forward. And I think this is one thing with very successful women. They know how to do things. And that's both a blessing and a curse, because when you know how to do something, you just like, get out of my way, I can just go do this. But rather, in this kind of an instance, don't go bulldozing your way towards something, rather do it one small step at a time. So build up a savings, build up don't just quit your job and move to Africa. Don't do that. Build up something that makes you feel trusting. And then at a certain point, I mean, I was scared to give everything up. I had a perfectly good life in Chicago. There was nothing wrong with it, except that I woke up in the morning not looking forward to what I was going to be doing, and I felt anxiety and panic attacks, but other than that, it was perfect, right? So what I would say is just is do this in a very methodical, step-by-step way. Do lots of journaling, do lots of connection with your heart, and save your money, save up a savings.
Great, thank you.
Be responsible.
Yeah, I hope we answered, Karen answered that question. The second question is, with the insights Karen is sharing, where can one read up more and get in touch with her?
Oh.
So somebody want to get in touch with you?
Please get in touch with me. I think start at my website at kaseepowell.com. So KaseePowell.com. I have got some free mini courses on there that you can do, and they actually really pack a punch. They're not like just a little, sort of thing to just, not get much out of. You really will get a lot out of. I've got 2 free courses on there right now that one's called Invite the Impossible. I think that's a really good place to start. So you'll find that on my website. Sign up for that, and then you'll be on my email list, and then you'll get my things that my offerings and my inspiration that I send out.
Great. still engaging with the audience, and I can see you are very alive and listening. So question number 3, the mentor concept is quite interesting. Do you have any other tools to use in the workplace to encourage creativity and growth and position?
Yes. Yeah, I think little focus groups are great. I think when you allow people to sit together in a little group, okay, it's different now in these COVID times, so we have to just keep a little distance, but you can have, I like groups of 3 to 4 people. You'll find that, and if it gets bigger, you'll get people who won't talk so much, and then you'll get one person who's talking mostly. So stick with like groups of 3 or 4, and just give women or men an opportunity to share what's on their mind. I think that if you do that in these smaller groups, they will open up. You can ask questions. What is your vision for your position that you're in right now? What is your vision for this year or for this quarter? I like to look at the year in quarters, not look at the whole year, but look, and the quarter is
about 3 months.
About 3 months. There's my magical 90-day container, and so in this quarter, what would you love to see yourself accomplish? What kind of goals would you like to set for yourself? Or what projects would we like to work on? And really just kind of do like the old-fashioned sort of brainstorming kind of thing. I think that's a really great way to open up the creativity in people. People just want to be heard. They listen to them, and they will speak.
Lovely. I think we spoke about the concept of being courageous and fear, and so there will never be a moment of operating without fear. And so to have courage is to really continue doing it even while you're feeling the fear.
Yes.
So the question that we're having is that on the subject of fear, how can we have more positive self-conversations about fear so that it doesn't paralyze us? Because it does often become paralyzing.
Yes. Another great question. And the thing about fear paralyzing you, it's because you haven't really shined a light on it. If you really shine a light on your fears, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. When you do that, they lose their grip. So we look at these fears as, oh my gosh, this big thing that's stopping me from doing what I really want to do. But if you really articulate the fear, and that means getting it out of your head, and your brain will say, no, I know this. No, the brain's just wanting to keep you in that paralysis. So get a pen and a piece of paper and do it the old-fashioned way, not on your computer, but actually write. People are going to laugh at me. Let's just say that's the fear. I'm afraid that I'm going to be rejected, whatever. And then you start to really shine a light on that. And then you can start picking it apart, and you can start analyzing it. You can start questioning it. And when you do that, it loses its grip. And its strength, because we think the fear is is stronger than I am, but really it's not. The fear is not stronger than you are. You are the strongest when you're in your present moment.
Wow, that is quite great. That we have to deal with fear that way, because quite often we see it as the big notion. We are close to wrapping up, and when you spoke about the fear, I remembered when you talked at the summit on July the 17th, if I'm correct. My memory serves me well. You spoke about, to you, one of the biggest things was about listening, and I do find that listening is one of the very important, almost ignored value when it comes to being a good leader, because we all want to, because it's all about listening when you're talking about that. So I really want you to expand a little bit about that particular notion of listening.
Yeah, I think
you started by sharing that you were showing up by listening to your daughter. and that was beautiful for me. So can you expand a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've got a teenage daughter, and this was supposed to be her gap year, where she matriculated last year, and then she was supposed to be traveling the world now and going to Europe and going to the States before she goes to university later on. And so that didn't happen because of COVID, and so she's been home and very disappointed. So just allowing, I think listening is really the art of just allowing someone to get things off their chest and not judging them and not actually even trying to fix anything, because I didn't try to fix to her, well, oh, but look at the bright side, you get to spend time with your mom and dad, and look at the bright side, I just listened and just like let her get it off her chest. It's the same with working with my groups, just letting people, as a leader, you've got a certain vision that you want to carry out, right? You want that you've got planned. But that in and of itself is just not enough to get all the gems that all of these people together can bring. So when you listen and you just really hold back, you sit back, you don't listen. Okay, we're leaning in today. We are leaning in to listen, but also to expand. But when I listen, I lean back so I'm not waiting to say my next thing, like to react to what they're saying. I really have tried to learn how to listen where someone says something and then you kind of just let that pregnant pause be there. And they're kind of waiting for you to jump in. And then I'll say, is there anything else? And that is a magical question. If you ask somebody who's just spilled their heart onto the table and you ask them, and you sort of let it sit, and you say, is there anything else? That magical question sometimes opens up the most incredible insights for that person that they didn't even know was there, because you've given them permission to go a little bit deeper. And when you say, yeah, you've said everything, so now let me, instead of saying, okay, then let's move forward, is there anything else? That's an opportunity for some really beautiful ideas, insights, things to share.
That's great. I just want to remind the audience and the participants that we really want to have your feedback. So just a reminder that you complete the feedback survey for those of you who RSVP'd. We will really appreciate your feedback. We value that quite a lot. As we're moving towards concluding our wonderful conversation, and I'm feeling excited and I'm warming up now, and as part of life we now have to sort of to take it towards the concluding the conversation. What else do you want to share with women? And I think what I would like you to do, I know it's a very tough question, is sort of how do we link this, let me call it a journey towards sort of discovering one's own creative self, and how do we link that to one's leadership journey, to one wanting to become an entrepreneur, to one wanting to have a promotion and do whatever you want in a company. Just how do you link that to one's leadership journey?
Yeah. I think it all comes down to authenticity, into really finding out who am I really authentically? Because when you know who you are, it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? You can live your purpose. You can be in a leadership role in a corporation, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be working for government, you can be a teacher, you can, whatever it is you're doing, you can be a mother, whatever. If you are in your authentic self, and that means being honest with yourself, being very honest, creating boundaries with other people, knowing who you are, knowing what's okay, what's not okay. When you really focus on who am I authentically in my heart, it doesn't matter what role you're in, you can then step into that role, living your purpose, contributing the kind of impact and the kind of gift that you want to give into this world and really be a force for good in the world, no matter what it is you're doing.
So if we go back to our topic for today in terms of showing up, could I say it's showing up as your authentic self, and really appreciating your unique capabilities and your unique talents, and really begin to live your purpose?
Yes, exactly. And showing up as your unique self and your authentic self is also realizing that none of us is perfect, and that those shortcomings or those so-called things that you think are your shortcomings, those are not in any way anything that should hold you back from being your authentic self. In fact, those are the things that you're meant to, you're ready to heal them. As you keep going more towards your authentic self, you are able to release those things that have been holding you back.
Wow. What would be the last message that you want to give to our audience out there? And that there's sort of a nugget that they need to sort of hold on?
I think I want to, I wasn't planning on this, but again, being curious now, because earlier I was speaking to someone about perfectionism. And I think that perfectionism is something that really, so many of us don't realize that we have it. And we think that we need to do something perfectly or not do it at all, or do it really, really well, or just don't do it at all. And this is stopping people from doing their actual purpose and engaging in their purpose. And this conversation I had a little earlier today with someone was, I asked her, I said, "Oh, I'll bet you're a really good painter. A really good artist." And she said, "Oh no, I don't do that because I always feel like if I were to draw something and I didn't like it, then I wouldn't I just wouldn't like that feeling." And I said, "Are you a perfectionist?" She's like, "Yeah, I think so." And I said, perfectionism is a prison with golden bars. And I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert who said that. And it's really that allowing yourself to be imperfect, because there is no such thing as perfectionism. Allow yourself to try things that feel interesting to you, that make you curious, and realize that if you do it, go in it with love, with curiosity, messy, you are going to be surprised at the kinds of gifts that get revealed to you.
Thank you, Karen. This was really a wonderful conversation. To our audience out there, I just want to remind you to check the Ultimate World platforms for our next 2 sessions coming up. The next one will be in November 2020 with Zenzi Avasis, followed by another one February 2021. With Taimi Itembu. So please continue checking on our websites and our platforms. I thank you. It was wonderful having all of you out there. For those of you who woke up very early, we're really grateful that you could be part of this session. I thank you. Thank you.